Okay, today we are going to talk about creating a Shiny app, and I have some special guests with me. This is
Hadley.
and,
Hi.
and this is
Adeline.
okay. So Hadley, Adeline, and they're going to help me out, and they're helping me out today because
We love baby names.
they love the baby names data set. So we are going to just jump right in here, and so I have our studio open, and the first thing I'm going to do is create a project. Oops. I'm going to, there we go, new project. And I'm going to just skip the version control now, but if I had wanted to, I could have set up a GitHub repo first and then done this via version control. Because I'm replicating this app, I'm going to just start from here. Also, I should point out here that you can click this button and this will sort of give you a template to get started. I'm going to just do a new project for now. And I'm going to put this on my desktop for now because I'm going to eventually delete this. So I'm going to call this baby names.
Baby names.
Baby names. And we'll give it a second to get set up here. And then the first thing I'm going to do, so remember when we create apps, we're going to go to File, New File, and I'm going to choose R script instead of our typical R markdown. So I'm going to open this, make that big, and then something else I often do is I open our markdown file as well. And let's see, oops, where did my controls go here? We'll just create an empty document here. And I'm going to have this here. I just sometimes like to get some R code run here. Okay, so now in here, the other thing I often do is I cheat. And I go to some old Shiny app I've made and I steal my own code. So let me just figure out my windows here and bring this over so you can see it. There we go. So you probably remember this from the tutorial you just went through. This is like the most basic Shiny app that exists. It has nothing in it, but it has the key elements I need. So I'm going to start by copying this and pasting it into my new file. And then I am also going to move this over to my other screen in case I make some mistakes in this document, which I almost surely will. And then the other thing I want to point out is I have at all times, well, I have this open to remind me of what we're doing, but I also have my Shiny cheat sheet open, and I'm going to reference this as I'm going. Okay, so once I have this bare minimum Shiny app, let's make this look a tad nicer. There we go. I'm going to save this into this project folder. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. And I'm already in the baby names folder, and I'm just going to call this the baby names app. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run this app and just make sure I don't have any mistakes right away. If I did, that would be a little bit sad. Okay, no mistakes, although remember, extremely boring because there's nothing in this. Okay, so let's start adding some things to our app. And before I jump into the more difficult pieces, I know that there's a couple libraries I'm going to need. I'm going to need Tidyverse. I always need Tidyverse. Right, Hadley?
Yes.
Right, Adeline? Yeah, we always need Tidyverse. And then I need the baby names library because we're going to work with that data.
Baby names.
Okay, and again, I just like to run the app sort of every time I make a change, just to make sure I haven't made some mistake. So again, very boring, but haven't made a mistake. No errors yet. Okay, and then I want to remind myself, there's the cheat sheet, of what app I'm trying to make. So I want to show the number of babies with a given name over time. I want to allow the user to type a single name. Maybe if we have time, we'll talk about typing more than one name. I want to allow the user to choose a range of years they would like to display, and I want to allow the user to filter by sex. Okay, so I'm trying to think right now of the places that the user is giving me some input. So the name, the range of years, and sex. And then I'm going to try to think about like what sorts of things are they doing there. So with sex, it's a filter, and it's in this data set is only male and female. So that could be something like a drop-down box. For choosing a range of years, I'm thinking sort of like a slider bar, so that they can move it around and choose the years. And for the name, I want them to be able to maybe just type in a name. We could think of more creative ways to do that as well. So those are all the user input things. So I'm going to get some of those set up first. Those go inside this UI fluid page portion. Okay. And let's actually jump back to the cheat sheet real quick. And so as I'm thinking about these inputs, I'm looking over at this portion of the cheat sheet. Maybe I'll zoom in on that a bit more. Trying to think about what the various inputs are that I'm going to use. Okay. All right, back to baby names. So, you know, let's just start thinking about those inputs. So let's go with, the, I guess maybe it makes sense to think about the name first, since that perhaps is the most relevant to the person using this app. So in this case, they're going to be typing in some text. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to, oops, where did it go? Lost all my bars here. There it is. I'm going to jump back to the cheat sheet. And I see that there's one here called text input. So I'm going to go ahead and try out that text input. So I need to give it an input ID, and I need to give it a label. So just to remind you, the input ID is what's going to be used later. In this server portion when we call that input. And then the label is what it'll actually look like in the user interface. Okay, so let's put our, oops. Okay, let's put our first thing in here. So text input. And you can see here all the arguments it gives you. So the input ID, actually let's explicitly call that input ID. I'm going to call this name. Oops. Okay. I just also want to make sure this doesn't look too different from what I did in the tutorial. And then the next argument here is the label. And for the label, I'm going to use N with a capital. I'm going to use name with a capital N. And then let's see, what were some of the other arguments? So value, this is the initial value if you want to have something in there by default. The other cool argument I like here, I'm gonna skip value. So I can just put parentheses in the, or excuse me, quotations in there. The one I like for text input is I like to use this placeholder because this sort of shows up in gray. And this is like an example of what they should put in there. And I'll go ahead and put, well, I'll use my name because I can't use just one of theirs because they'll maybe get mad. Okay, so now I have this. The first thing I want to do, again, you'll see me do this over and over, is I'm going to save my app and I'm going to run my app. I like to do this at every step to make sure I haven't made a mistake. So I can see now that it has that placeholder. Now, if I actually do something, nothing's going to happen here because I haven't told it what to do with this, but that's good. That looks like what I was expecting. And I realized maybe I want to have name : maybe that looks a little nicer. Okay. Let's move on to the filtering by sex. So I'm going to jump back to the cheat sheet. So when I filter, I want to do something where I have just two choices here. So it looks like this select input is going to do the right thing for me. So let's try that. Select input. And by the way, notice that I have a comma over here, very important. I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten that. I once again need an input ID. Again, this is what I'll reference later in the server side of things. So we'll call this sex. And the label, we'll do sex with a colon. And what are some other arguments I have here? We won't automatically select one. We're not going to allow multiple items. There's some width and size. I'm just trying to think if I did anything else. I do need, oh, that's the one I forgot. I do need to tell it the choices. Oops, don't want to forget that. So this gives it the choices that should show up there. So we'll say, let's make sure I do this right. Ah, that's right. This has to be a list. So let's actually read this carefully. See, I almost made a mistake there. Let's go back and see what, actually, let's go back to the cheat sheet. So select input, choices. Okay, that doesn't give me much there. I could try the help. Let's see what this, let me go back here. Let's scroll over choices. Oh, that doesn't really help me. Oh, press F1. I'm going to try that. There we go. Let's open this up. Choices, list of values to select from. If elements of the list are named, then that name, rather than the value, is displayed to the user. Okay. Let's see here. So let's check back and see what I did in my other example here. Oops. Okay, so let's do choices equals, and then we have to give it a list of our choices. So let's say female equals F and male equals M. And if we go back to these instructions here, So these do need to be the values that this variable takes in the data. So I believe in our baby names data set, let's take a look at that really quick. Baby names. Okay. Okay, so if I take a look at the baby names data set, yes, the values that they take are F and M. So I want to make sure that those are in my two choices. And if I name them, instead of F and M showing up, female and male will show up. So let's stick with that. Okay, let's see here. Oops. Had something still down here. Okay, I've made a mistake somewhere. Oh, I haven't closed everything. So I've closed the select input, not the fluid page. I'm gonna actually put that down here so I don't keep making the same mistake. Okay. So there's my boring app. Notice female and male show up rather than F and M, and I can type in a name, still no data to work with. All right, then I think the last thing we wanted to do was have a way to filter the years. So how are we gonna filter the years? Well, I'm gonna jump back to that cheat sheet again. And I want to do something like this. Okay, I want to have a slider where I can go between two values. So I think that's the one I want. Yep, looks like slider input is what I want. Right, Adeline?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. Adeline, you think that's right?
I don't know.
Yeah, you're just excited to plot your name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. We'll get there. Okay, slider input. So let's see, we definitely need the input ID. So we'll call this year. And then we're gonna need a label. And let's, because I know it's gonna be a slider, I'm gonna call this year range, colon. And then they'll be able to choose a range of years. Okay. Oh, look, I didn't even remember I did that before, but I did do that before. Somewhere in my memory. Okay, so, wrong thing. The other thing, actually, let me go back here so you can see where this is coming from. The other thing we want to give it is the minimum value and the maximum value that can be selected. So let's see here. We could actually compute this from the data. So perhaps, perhaps I'll do that. So let's make the minimum value baby names. Oops. I know we haven't used this notation a lot in this class, but I can do the minimum of baby names $year, and that will give me the minimum year for the data. And then the max will be max baby names $year. And then what else do we want to give it? Oh, I remember. There's one little trick here. So value, the initial range of values. Oops, let's get that on the next line. Is going to go from, let's see. Actually, I'm just going to copy this. It's going to go from whatever this is, the minimum, to the maximum. And then one other thing I want in here, and I can't remember if this is in here or not. I think this is an extra. Oh no, it's right there, SEP. So because these are years, I don't want a separator for the thousands place. So I'm going to make that separator. Oops. There we go. I'm going to make that just nothing. So I'm going to put quotes with nothing in it. Okay, so let's give that a whirl. All right, so it looks like I have my year range. I can move this around, which is really cool. And great. So my user input now is sort of set. Now comes the slightly trickier part. This is where we do all of our R coding. So let's think back to what we're trying to do here. You getting excited? We're almost to the plotting stage.
Wait, so then I can put my name?
Yes, then you can put your name. It's going to be super exciting. Okay, so, oops, this is not the one I want to be on. Let's go this out of the way. Okay, so let's see here. Show the number of names with a given name over time. Okie dokie. So here's one little trick I use when I'm first starting to make the server side of things. If possible, I just make a static graph first to make sure I don't make any mistakes as I'm coding. So I'm just going to take the baby names data and I'm going to filter because I know at some point I'm going to want to filter. So for now, I'm going to filter to sex equals female. And oh no, I'm going to filter to name equals name.
Hadley.
Oh, okay. You're going to let Hadley do it. That's great. So name equals Hadley. And I'm going to plot it. And let's see, on the x-axis, we're going to have year. And on the y-axis, we're going to have n. Did I forget anything? Oh, hello. I forgot my geom line. So notice I haven't used any of the inputs here. I just kind of want to get the graph set and make sure I haven't made any mistakes in that part of the code. So let me run the app. And here we go. And my plot isn't there. Oh, maybe it will be as soon as I do these things. Okay, well, but I don't have any errors, so that's good. Maybe something is going wrong and I haven't quite caught it yet. Let's also do this. This is another thing I sometimes do, is I like to take my code and I'm going to go over here to my, essentially empty, oops, our markdown document and paste the code in here and run it. Okay, good. I have not made a mistake. I am going to add theme minimal because, I like that one. Okay, great. Well, we've got something here. Now what we need to do is, oh, hello, I know what I forgot. How could I forget this step? I forgot to tell it what kind of output I'm going to have. So this is why it's not recognizing anything I have here, because I haven't even told it that I'm going to have any type of output. So let's go back to the cheat sheet. Almost to the plotting part, I promise. The cheat sheet. So I need to tell it what type of output I want, right? And I need to also tell it to render that plot. This is what I'm missing. My goodness, that's a little bit embarrassing. Oh, well. So we want a plot output, okay? Right? So we're gonna give it a plot output and we need to give it at least an output ID, okay? So let's go back here into our user interface and we'll do plot output. And let's see, the output ID, let me look back and see what I did before. We'll just call this time plot. Let's call it name plot. That's really a better name. Okay, now let's save this and run that code or run the app. Okay, still no plot, but I think that's to be expected because we haven't actually told it to add a plot. What? I didn't want? Oh, no, I have your name in there, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so now over in this part, let's actually add a render function. So this is getting a little bit tricky or a little bit new. So here's where we need to connect some of our things from the user interface to the server side of things, okay? So I'm gonna tell it to use that name plot. Okay, and this, oops. Okay, and this is where we're gonna use that render plot function. And let me just do this, and I'm gonna cut this out of here, and I'm gonna paste it in here. Okay, and let me just in case that part was a bit confusing, let me just jump into the cheat sheet here and point out that because we use this plot output and gave it an in our user interface part, we need to use render plot in order to sort of manifest that plot when we compile our app. And actually, I don't think I need these curly brackets. I'm not exactly sure why I had them in there before. Okay, so I think that will do it. Now let's try running our app. All right, so now notice that there is a plot here. It's already filled in. If I change something here, so if I put Lisa and change to, let's say, male, this isn't actually going to change my plot right now because I have this user interface part, and right now I just have a static plot. Okay, so here's where we need to connect those pieces from the user interface to what's in the server side of things. Okay, so let's make some of those changes. So here, instead of sex being equal to female, we're gonna have sex equal to input, $, and then what did we call it? Well, here's our various input things, right? So for, oops, what one am I on? Sex, we called it sex, lowercase s, okay? And then here, instead of name being equal to Hadley, we're gonna have the name be equal to input, $, not Adeline, name, because that way we'll be able to change the name. Yeah. And then in the plot, let's see, what do we need to change in the plot? So here, we actually need to add something. So right now, it'll just plot over the entire range of data. But I can change that if I use scale x continuous and make my limits equal to, let's see here. Yeah, so this, where did I put that? The year I said here is actually going to be a list of years, or a vector of years. It'll give you two numbers back that the whatever you choose for the min and whatever you choose for the max. So the limits are just going to be that input, oops, $, here. Okay, I think, hopefully I did all that right. Let's try to run the app and see what happens. Uh-oh. Oh, somewhere I missed a comma or a plus sign. There we go. I missed a plus sign. Okay, let's try again. Okay, so I have what looks like an empty graph. What name should we type in?
Hadley.
Oh, Hadley again? Okay, Hadley, sex, female, and then we'll do the full, you can see the graph already updated itself. So there we are. Looks like there was no Hadleys until, I don't know, the early 1960s maybe.
Can you type in Adeline now?
Now we can type in Adeline too. Let's try it. All right. Oh, it looks like there was a lot of Adelines in the 1920s, and then it resurged again, like right when you were born.
And how about Luna?
Luna. Okay, we'll do one more. Luna was the request. And
male,
let's just,
male.
You want to see if there's any male Lunas? Okay. Not many. See that number? That's 7. So there have not been many male Lunas. Let's try females. Oh, wow. That's really made a surge, hasn't it? And we could, if we wanted to, change the date range there.
Cool.
Okay, cool. One other feature I want to add is I just want to add a button so that when you make these changes, you can then click a button at the end and your plot won't populate until you click that button. So let's add that, and let's jump over to the cheat sheet really quick. Oops. So there are submit buttons. I thought there was one other button there. Action button. And the one I want to use, I believe, is the submit button. Yep. So we're going to add that to the user interface. So essentially, this is going to stop anything from happening until you click that submit button. So if I go back to baby names here, let's go up to the user interface part, and we're going to add a submit button. And the text that I want it to say is, I want it to say, create my plot, exclamation point. Because we're excited about creating our plots, right? Yeah, they're not bored.
We like baby names.
Okay, so this time, let's, Chris, okay. Chris or Christopher? Christopher, okay. And then we're gonna try male, okay. So notice that this plot hasn't changed, and I see what I think so now it puts my plot above this. We'll go change that in a second. We'll click that button here. Whoa, there were so many Christophers in the early 1980s.
Can you try it in female?
Oh, sure. We can look to see if there's female Christophers. Why not?
Oh.
Looks like there were some. Okay, interesting. Okay. So I actually want this submit button up here because I sort of lose track of it down there. So that was my fault. So see this submit button? I'm going to take this whole thing, I'm going to cut it out, and I'm also going to delete this comma that I otherwise would have forgotten about. I'm going to paste it in there, and let's just run that app one more time.
Can we try Mesa and female?
Sure, we can try Mesa females. And see, now my create plot button is right here, which makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, Mesa's not a very popular name.
How about in mail?
We can check. None. Or at least fewer than 5, because that's what this data has. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is that you can publish this app. So if I go to publish application, now I already have this set up. You have the instructions in the tutorial, so you should take a look at those. But once you have this set up, it's pretty easy to publish. I'll keep the title baby names. I will publish. Now this does take a, well, let's see, cannot be checked. Huh. Oh, I know what happened. I called it baby names app instead of app.r. That was my fault. Okay, let me close this and let me go into my files. So this needs to be called app.r. That was my fault for naming it incorrectly. So let's go over here, rename, and instead we're going to call it app.r. Okay.
Now we can install it.
Install isn't quite the right word, but close. We're going to deploy it.
Deploy.
Deploy it, that's right. So I run the app again. Oh, did I not click it? What happened here? Oh. What did I do? Quite sure what happened. Let's try stopping that. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to get rid of this, don't need it. I'm going to try to close this. There we go, and reopen our studio. Let's see, oops. I can hear my computer being super noisy right now, so it's possible I have made it angry.
Listen, please.
It's humming. Yes, the computer is humming quite loudly. Let's see here. Let's try opening this from here instead. There we go. That worked. Okay, let's open this app.r file and see. Yay. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what happened. I'm sure if I go back and watch my own video, I might catch what I did wrong there, but let's just make sure. I think we've got everything. Yep, there we go.
This is popular.
In the 1960s, that's right.
In mail.
We can check that in a little bit after we publish the app. So let's go to publish applications. Hopefully I can do it right this time. And yes, my computer is really singing right now. It's not very happy with me. Okay, now this takes a little bit of time the first time you publish it. As you update it, it doesn't take as much time. But essentially, it has to sort of install all these packages that you're calling. So since Tidyverse is such a big package, that one takes a while. So it's going to take a little bit of time for this to work. So maybe while we're waiting, this is not just a practice. I decided to just wing it and do the whole thing right away. So I don't know what I know. Let's talk real quick and talk about like what features you would add to the app. Like what other things would you like to be able to do with the baby names data set?
I would want to say how old, or like you could say how old they were. Like you could say like, let's say, George. How many Georges are in like the 1950s, and they were all 7.
Oh, so I think these are their names, like the names they got when they were born.
Yeah.
But we could sort of figure out how old those people would be now. Is that what you're kind of thinking? Okay, that's a good idea. What else can we do with our app? Any other ideas?
Compare like Hadley to Adeline.
Oh, compare names.
And see like whose name was more popular like in the 1950s, and then who was more popular like right now.
Okay. So Adeline wants to be able to compare names. I'm not sure how well you all can hear them when they're right next to me. So yeah, you want to be able to compare names. That's a good idea. I think that's something that my students could work on too. Great. So you can see this does take a little bit of time the first time. What else would you like to see in the app? How many names should you be able to compare if you were going to compare names?
I would want to see how many you want.
Oh, you could, okay. That's a good idea. All right, guess what, folks? We have success. So when you have success, I'm going to pull this over here. Your app will show up in a web browser, and you actually, this is my Shiny Apps.io page. So I could now send this app to Hadley. Well, Hadley doesn't have her own electronic device, but I could send it, but she wants one. But I could send it to Adeline. I could send her this URL, and she could play with this baby names app all day long.
Really?
Yeah. And you could send it to your friends. It'd be so fun. Okay. Well, we have a baby names app started, and I hope this was helpful, and hopefully my kids made it more fun for you. I think we are going to sign off now and go outside. Does that sound good?
Or we might have been more distracting.
That's okay. All right, say bye.
Bye. Bye.
Oh my gosh. Okay, bye-bye.